This is the brand new BenQ TK705S Ti projector. To be honest, I've personally never really seriously considered a projector as a viable option for my home entertainment system. My experience with other projectors in the past has generally shown me that they tend to be too dim, washed out, and just feel kind of like a compromise. But this projector has actually genuinely changed my entire perspective on home theater setups and projectors themselves. I genuinely never knew that a projector could be this immersive. The combination of huge screen size, brightness in a dark room, and surprisingly punchy color make it feel closer to an actual cinema than to a TV. And I actually found myself changing my entire TV room just to accommodate this projector. And as someone who reviews a lot of tech, that is genuinely something that doesn't happen very often. And just so you know, this video is not sponsored, and BenQ will see the video at the same time you do. So let me share my experience of using this projector for the past few weeks, starting at day one. So to be honest, initially when I first unboxed the projector, I was actually fairly skeptical for the reasons that I just explained. My experience with past projectors hasn't always been great. So my first test was to set it up in my bedroom and project it onto the wall at the end of the bed. Now BenQ also sent me their ST30 stand. And to be honest, I think this is an essential piece of equipment if you're going to use a projector of this kind of size. It just makes it so much easier to position your image onto the wall when compared to just having it sitting on its feet. Once it was plugged in, I started the setup process using Google TV, which is the built-in operating system. I'm a big fan of using Google TV on these kinds of projectors. It gives you all of the app support that you need and more. I'm actually a big fan of the fact that you can control your smart home devices right within Google TV. But apart from that, I was very happy to see that the UI felt super snappy straight out of the box. And that's also been my experience ever since. There's really no lag. Now from there, I closed my blinds and loaded up my first film. And this is where my perspective really started to change, because I was honestly quite blown away by the image quality. This is my first 4K projector, and honestly, you can really tell the difference between this and a 1080p projector. For reference, I'm coming from a Samsung 4K TV, and the sharpness on this projector is just as good as my Samsung. Even when you're projecting at much larger sizes, the image I was getting in my bedroom was about 110 inches, so that's massive compared to my 65-inch Samsung TV. I was also really impressed by the colors in the image. Everything looks really vibrant and accurate, especially when I was watching content in HDR. That's when I found I really noticed just bright and punchy colors. But I think one of the things that impressed me the most was actually the contrast levels, because this has been one of my biggest complaints with projectors that I've used in the past. You've probably experienced this, where dark scenes just are barely viewable. You lose all the detail in the shadows and the blacks just end up looking like this muddy gray. But on this projector, dark scenes have no issues with detail at all when viewed in a dark room, and I found the contrast levels were really nice. Obviously, it's not like a true black like on an OLED, but to me, just projecting onto a plain wall, it looks excellent. And the brightness levels were again really impressive. It's rated for 3000 lumens, and I think moving forward I would struggle to go back to a dimmer projector just because it looks so nice. I noticed straight away with ambient daylight it did struggle a little bit more and is obviously going to perform best in complete darkness, but it was still definitely viewable in ambient light. And this is when I started to think, man, this actually feels like a genuine cinema screen. The same feeling that I get when I go to the movies, I was actually getting that same feeling just in my bedroom. This is the wall that I've been projecting onto, and it's been amazing. And I'm really starting, I think, to get the hype of projectors and just how immersive they can be. However, my bedroom isn't really set up as the most comfortable space, and so I really want to be able to move it to my living room. This is where my TV is currently set up. The first thing is reorganizing the living room so that the space is set up for the projector, so I'm going to do that now. This was my first real test of the auto keystone feature, and overall I was pretty impressed. It's got sensors in the front of the projector itself to be able to pick up obstacles, and I noticed it was able to recognize the two speakers on either side of the screen and move the image to fit within them. I did generally find that it still required a bit of manual adjustment. I've put it on this bookshelf back here, and then I've managed to get an image pretty big. The best part is I've got it between the two speakers for my surround sound system. So that's looking promising. I'm not sure what my wife's going to say when she walks home and sees the living room has been rearranged. Now, during the day when I first set it up, the picture was looking absolutely massive to start off with. However, with the ambient daylight, it was a bit dim. I found myself thinking that I'd probably struggle to sit and watch actual TV or movies in this kind of ambient light. But once the sun came down, the projector screen absolutely came alive. And I was was, again, just so impressed. I was getting an even bigger screen. It was something like 130 inches roughly. That was kind of what I measured. Now the next problem I faced was that I didn't actually have a HDMI cable that was long enough to reach my home theater system from the projector. So I decided to order one on Amazon and wait for it to arrive. Okay, so last night I tested out the projector in the living room, and honestly, it was really cool. I'm actually honestly so impressed. Like, I'm getting a really nice image on just my living room wall. The immersion is just so cool. Now the next day, the HDMI cable arrived and I used it to connect the projector to my surround sound system because the projector actually supports eARC. It worked perfectly to send surround sound 5.1 audio to my home theater system, and I love the fact that with ARC you can use the projector remote to control the volume on your home theater system. It's working. The actual remote itself is decent. It's nothing particularly special. It's actually the same remote that the cheaper GV50 projector uses, just a different color, but it's got everything you need. I have no real complaints about it. I think it would just be nice if it was backlit or something like that. Another thing I was very impressed with was actually the fan noise. Once I had my home theater system running, the noise of the fan pretty much disappeared. I was able to very easily tune it out. Now since then, I've been using this projector basically on a daily basis, and there's a few other things that I've noticed. First, I've tried a few different positions for placement, and what I've kind of ended up sticking with is actually on my coffee table in front of the couch because it's about 1.5 meters closer to the TV. And the biggest benefit I've noticed with this is that it makes the image actually significantly brighter and makes it quite viewable even during daylight with ambient light. Plus, it's even punchier in total darkness, so that's something worth keeping in mind. It does perform better closer to the wall. This is a short throw projector after all. Now, one issue that I have found myself running into is the lack of an Ethernet port. Now, I think for most people, it probably won't be an issue if you use services like Netflix or any of the streaming services. However, if you're someone like me who has a home media library that runs via Plex, I tend to download very high quality files and they struggle to stream just over Wi-Fi. Of course, you could always just plug in an external device like an Apple TV with Ethernet, and then you'll still be able to project with no issues. Now, I went into this review wondering whether or not a projector could replace a TV. And to be honest, looking back now, I think I was actually asking the wrong question, because now I kind of see them as quite different formats. I think TVs are more about convenience because their screen size is smaller, they're more just set and forget, and they work in all different lighting environments. However, I think projectors are more about that full immersive cinema experience. And I think they're less convenient because you do have to think about extra things like enough space to project on a wall, a room that has enough darkness, maybe has blackout blinds or no windows. And if you're projecting it from the back of a room, you do have to think more about the logistics of how you're going to connect your projector into your audio system, especially if you've got like a home theater system. But I think if you're wanting that home cinema experience, maximum immersion, then a solid projector really is the way to go. Plus, another benefit to me is the fact that projectors like this one are quite portable. I definitely plan on taking this around to families' places for Christmas and watching Christmas movies on a huge home theater, which is great because I think cinema experiences like this are meant to be shared. So last but not least, do I recommend this specific BenQ projector at $2,500 Australian dollars. This is not a cheap piece of tech, but I think if you've already got existing home theater gear or you've got the budget to build a proper home theater experience, then this is going to give you a ridiculously immersive experience for the price. To me, it's by far the closest I've ever felt to sitting in a real cinema while still being at home. So for me, if your goal is immersion, then nothing I've ever used has ever come close to this. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you looking at this projector? What are your thoughts on projectors versus TVs? Also, if you're looking at the BenQ GV50 portable projector, then I've got a review on that right here.